Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Ethics Commission meeting to order. We'll start by the roll call. Chair Wallen here, Vice Chair Dufferin,
Here.
Commissioner Grunwald,
Here.
Commissioner Lowry,
Here.
Commissioner Oscarson,
Here. Here.
Commissioner Sheets.
Here.
Markham is absent, unexcused, please. Commissioner Taylor
Here.
and Commissioner Yin is excused. She's traveling. So she couldn't be here. For staff, we have Executive Director Armstrong.
Here.
Associate Counsel Bassett.
Here.
Senior Legal Researcher Hayden.
Here.
Executive Assistant Pedroza.
Here.
And we also have Investigator Terry.
Here.
And our Deputy Attorney General, Lena St. Jules. Here. Okay. This time we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Right. Next item is public comment. I'd like to ask the Executive Director Armstrong if we've received any comment from the public. If there's any members of the public here that wish to comment.
There are no members of the public here that wish to comment, and I will defer to Executive Assistant Pedroza if there are members of the public on the Zoom that would like to comment.
We have one member of the public on Zoom who has indicated they would not make public comment.
Okay, thank you. Next item, item 3, approval of the January 18th, 2023 commission minutes. For the record, Commissioner Sheets did not attend the January meeting and may not participate in the approval of the minutes. All other commissioners may participate. I'd like to call the item, ask if there are any additions or changes to the minutes as read.
I move to approve the January minutes.
Is there a second? I second. Right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 4, discussion and approval of a proposed stipulation and ethics complaint case number 22-098C. Jarden, former member Reno City Council, Ward 5, and former chair Regional Transportation Commission, Washoe County. Proper notice has been provided and waivers have been received for ethics case number 22-098C Jarden. Further, Commissioner Yen has abstained from participating in this matter and may not participate in the consideration of this proposed stipulation. All other commissioners may participate and vote on this matter. At this time, I would like to ask the counsels for the parties to identify themselves and their clients for the record. And please have a seat up here.
This is Executive Director Ross Armstrong, and I'll be presenting this stipulation.
Morning, Josh Hicks with McDonald Chrono for Ms. Jarden.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
It's been a while. All right, at this time, I would like to ask Executive Director Armstrong present an overview of the proposed stipulation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On August 17th, the commission received a complaint with various allegations regarding Ms. Neoma Jarden in relation to her departure from the City Council and obtaining a position with the Downtown Reno Partnership. The commission took its jurisdictional determination and issued a directive for me to investigate the case and added additional issues and facts to the complaint. And so we investigated 400 subsection 1, 2, 10, and 550 of the ethics law. The timeline of events in this case is that in November of 2021, while Ms. Jarden was sitting on the Regional Transportation Commission, Washoe, they entered into an agreement with the Downtown Reno Partnership. In August of 2022, Ms. Jarden announced her departure from the city of Reno. The as a member of the city council, she sat on the RTC Washoe, right? So it wasn't two separate jobs. It was as part of her duties as being a city council member. They appoint different city council members to different groups. And so she was on the RTC. So so she departed and then started a job with the Downtown Reno Partnership. The ethics law has two provisions really about cooling off. One restricts who you can go work for, and the other restricts what type of activities that you can do. And the restriction, one of the restrictions on who you can work for is you cannot go work for a private entity if in the previous year, in your position, you've had influence to award a contract to that entity. And in this case, the RTC, which Ms. Jardin sat on, had awarded a contract to the Downtown Reno Partnership. So that November agreement between the RTC and the Downtown Reno Partnership becomes what I'll kind of refer to as like the offending contract in this case, and triggered the implication of the ethics law. So we proceeded with the investigation, which included numerous interviews, review of documentations, and then in working with counsel for Ms. Jardin have arrived at this stipulation. So Ms. Jardin has waived the review panel. This didn't go to review panel, so all commissioners can participate. The agreement is that Ms. Jardin and the executive director agree there'll be one violation of NRS 281A 550 subsection 5, and that violation should be deemed as non-willful. In terms of the mitigating factors that led the commission to believe that, or that led the executive director to believe it should be non-willful, includes that there was no evidence that that contract, when she worked to execute that contract for RTC, that she knew that she'd be going to work for the Downtown Reno Partnership, or even that vacancy would be there. I think the concern in a cooling off case is that someone in their final acts as a public officer will arrange something for their future employer, and there was not evidence of that, what I would consider the seriousness of the offense, right? In addition to the, you can't go work for someone that you have a contract with, you can't go then lobby your old agency. And in our investigation, we found no facts that Ms. Jardin had participated in that at all, right? She's been diligent about not going back and lobbying for old entities. And then there are a number of other mitigating factors listed in the stipulated agreement. I think for me, the biggest one that to me said this should be a non-lawful violation is that not only did she sought some legal advice beforehand, and I really think that thinking about the RTC role was probably just an oversight, right? They focused super hard on the city of Reno position, but not so much in the role in the RTC. But also that given the unique nature of the Downtown Reno Partnership, this business improvement district, I think that had Ms. Jardin followed the ethics law in terms of asking this commission for relief through the advisory opinion process, that we probably would have recommended and maybe even granted relief in this particular case because of the nature of the services that the Downtown Reno provides are kind of quasi-governmental. And so that to me really was like, no, this case should be a non-willful case. So in addition to the non-willful violation of 281A 555, the agreement dismisses all the other allegations that were investigated. And then there's also a fine of $3,060. And I will explain that because anytime there's like a $60 amount, how did you come up with that number? The commission does not have a long history of, or not, we just don't have a lot of case law around cooling off in terms of violations. Are sometimes hard to investigate. We don't have a lot of good cases to look back on, and how do you come up with what the penalty should be? And so in working with Mr. Folletta, who represented her through the case from McDonald-Carano, we try to come up with an objective measure of what would be an appropriate financial penalty, because we both came to the understanding that you can't have a penalty that's like the cost of doing business, right? So what is an appropriate penalty in this case where it's non-willful, where she likely would have gotten relief if she had asked for it appropriately. And so we took a look at the offending contract, right, from the RTC, and we took a look at the difference in her annual salary from Downtown Reno Partnership and at the city of Reno being a city council member. So we took that financial gain and took the percentage of her new agency's budget that is made up of that offending contract, and then applied it to the financial difference in her two salaries. And that is how we came up with the $3,060 fine. So that was our objective measure, was that in this case where you have what is not a super, it's not the most serious cooling off case ever, but you still want to create a deterrent for other folks that aligning it to the amount that new entity has from that offending contract made logical sense to us. And so that is a recommendation to resolve this matter. And of course, after Mr. Hicks, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hicks, do you have any additional comments or information you would like to add?
Thank you, Commissioner. I just would like to thank Mr. Armstrong and staff. They've been cooperative and professional through this process. Ms. Jordan has fully cooperated from the beginning. We've taken these very seriously, as Mr. Armstrong said. I think the one non-willful violation we've seen, as Mr. Armstrong said, occurred because of a vote Ms. Jordan took 10 months before the job was even available. So it's difficult to foresee that, but we also understand the statute is what the statute is, which is why Ms. Jordan has agreed to the stipulation and agreed to the fine amount. And so we urge the commission's support, and Ms. Jordan looks forward to putting this behind her and moving forward with the good work for the Downtown Reno Partnership.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will open it up to my fellow commissioners. Any comments, questions for either?
Madam Chair, I had
Yes,
a number of
Vice Chair Duffner.
questions. Thank you. First question is, I appreciate that Ms. Jordan sought legal advice. She didn't seek the commission's legal advice and didn't ask for an opinion, but I was curious, who gave her the legal advice?
So in the course of the investigation, there was some legal advice provided by the city attorney's office, and then it appeared, but we were unable to confirm that there was also some private legal advice that was provided.
Okay, my other question is, when did she start the new position? What day?
Oh, check the exact day. Her last meeting of the city council was August 10th. And so it was, I think shortly thereafter, so I don't have that exact date with me. But it was, I think, almost immediately thereafter.
I had a number of questions on the amount of the civil, what we're terming civil penalty of the $3,060. And you kind of briefly and quickly went through that calculation. I was kind of hoping we could slow that down a little bit, and for my benefit, maybe for everybody else, because this is an unusual case, and we don't have a lot of cases in the past that we can look at for this dollar amount if we decide that we're going to go that route. So once again, how did you arrive at that? Because you zipped through that so fast, I couldn't make my notes and do my own calculation.
Yeah, no problem. What we did was we said, okay, here's this offending contract from the RTC, which was roughly $100,000 annually. That $100,000 represents about 3.6% of the Downtown Reno Partnership's $2.8 million budget. So a very small portion of that Downtown Reno Partnership's budget. So then we took that 3.6% and applied it to the difference between Ms. Jordan's salary at the Downtown Reno Partnership and her salary at the city of Reno as a city council person.
Okay. So, and based on all the other facts of the case and based on the testimony I've heard today, before that, I was not comfortable with this, but I'm much more comfortable now. Statute does say, we're talking about NRS 281A.550, that she did violate non-willfully the provision in Chapter 5, which says that she shall not accept employment. She did accept employment, but based on all the other factors, I'm somewhat comfortable with this. I'm still not super comfortable with the dollar amount, but I'd like to hear what other commissioners have to say. Thank you.
Fellow commissioners, Commissioner Lowry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that it referenced in the statement of facts that there was a 2018 vote that Jordan abstained from regarding the Downtown Reno Partnership. What was the basis of her conflict or abstention back in 2018? And I'm focused on that because it suggests to me that if she abstained back then, that she had a relationship or a conflict going back several years. So if you could clear that up for me, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. And this goes to somewhat the unique nature of this Downtown Reno Partnership organization, which it's a nonprofit. It has a board of directors. And my understanding is that there's a member of the city council who will then sit on that board of directors for the Downtown Reno Partnership. And so I think in her role as being a member of that board, based on her city council role, she abstained at that time.
Because she sat on the board of the Downtown Reno Partnership?
As part of her city council duties, yes.
And during what time period did she do that?
I believe that was the basis for the abstention in 2018, and was through the time of her leaving the city council. What we determined during the investigation through review and interview of multiple folks at the Downtown Reno Partnership was that there was the departure of the executive director. At that point, Ms. Jordan had an interest in taking on that role. And so she then recused herself from the Downtown Reno Partnership's consideration of candidates for that role, right? So she removed herself from the hiring decision to choose the new executive director.
Commissioner Lowry.
I'm absorbing this. Thank you.
So was she on the board when RTC awarded the contract?
I believe so, yes.
But she didn't abstain.
From the RTC vote.
Okay.
Was that listed in any of our stipulated facts?
I didn't recall seeing it.
No, I mean, it notes the stipulated fact that she served on the RTC board at the time of the contract, but not that in her role as city councilman, she was their representative on the board for the Downtown Reno Partnership.
So that adds a little more. Other commissioners, comments? No? Questions? Commissioner Lowry?
In all honesty, I'm not prepared to vote. This layer, I need more information about the entire situation. And I think it needs to be, if it doesn't change the dynamic of the outcome, at the very least, more facts about her sitting on the board of the company needs to be part of the factual analysis and opinion.
Other commissioners have comments? I too, I mean, the fact that I just now learned that she was serving on the board when that contract was awarded and didn't abstain just kind of concerns me. Because she knew not to vote on it when it was in 2018, she abstained. And what changed those facts and circumstances?
Yes, just to follow up on that, do we know why she did not abstain on those other votes? The later votes after
On the RTC
yeah,
one?
is there?
No,
It sounds like she's getting, I don't know if it's good representation, but she's getting some legal counsel from the city and it sounds like maybe private for this particular issue. Don't know if she got the legal counsel for voting or not voting on the issue when this came up on the Reno City Council's agenda. So I'm kind of clouded too as to my judgment about whether or not I should approve this personally as one commissioner. So there seems to be some gray area about what she understood her role was on her various roles on these different boards and councils and the RTC side, and then we've never been able to talk to her. So we don't know. Just once again, we're only presented with the facts that are in front of us.
Right. And I think we didn't go deep into the RTC vote in terms of abstention and non-abstention due to the scope of the investigation. We could have added additional facts and issues and asked for a response in that way, but I think we were headed towards a resolution and really focused on the cooling off issue as the most serious issue at hand. I think the nature of this improvement district and the downtown Reno partnership is, it took us a lot to wrap our hands around, and in the process of getting a response, counsel for Ms. Jordan submitted a supplemental response because it was clear that we were still trying to figure out how all of this works. The downtown improvement district essentially has the group of property owners in this district pay an additional assessment that then goes through and to the downtown Reno partnership for additional, what I would consider quasi-governmental services. And then some of those funds actually fund the city in terms of additional police support and that nature. The RTC agreement specifically funds additional resources for the RTC property that is that main bus terminal in downtown Reno. And so that is why the RTC agreed to an additional, to pay above and beyond any other assessment, because they wanted additional resources and services for the folks to make that bus terminal safe. And so, the money goes through this improvement district, and at the current time, it's the Downtown Reno Partnership Organization that has the responsibility of providing some of those additional services. In our investigation and discussion, the city could always, well, I think the property owners at some point could say, we don't want to pay this assessment anymore, and the improvement district would go away. And the city could say, we want to change who is performing those services at some point, but it's not, as we indicated on the mitigating factors, there's not a bunch of organizations set up to provide those types of services.
I appreciate that, those comments and the clarification, but for me, as one commissioner, I just keep going back to the statute, which we're saddled with in this case, which is her role on the city council and on the RTC. And also now evidently on the actual board of the company. At the time these things were agreed to, the relationship between the city and this entity seems like there's a conflict. And once again, we know there's a conflict. That's why we're here today, but to try to resolve it, I'm not sure I have all the facts either based on what's before us. I'm not so sure and I appreciate the amount of effort that went into figuring out the dollar amount for the fine, for the civil penalty. I'm not so sure that really rectifies it for me. So those are my comments, Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Towler.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So Ms. Jordan is still in this position?
As the executive director of the Downtown Reno Partnership, yes.
So that, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So there's the cooling off period, and we're saying, you violated that, here's the penalty, but no cooling off needed if you pay.
Yeah, we don't have the legal authority to tell a private entity they have to terminate employment with someone, right? And so I think, and this is, I think this is why we've wrestled with not having a lot of cooling off cases, because you just don't get all the facts you need. When I go train in entities and I talk about the cooling off period, we talk about kind of the nightmare cooling off scenario, right? Which is somebody's offered this big cushy job when they leave public service because they're going to do some sort of action before they leave to benefit their new employer, right? From the investigation, and to me, that is a total willful violation and you go for the maximum amount, you know, you take the entire amount of financial gain and you double it, and that's how you create a big deterrent. This case is substantially far from that nightmare cooling off scenario. I think that Ms. Jordan made good faith efforts to get legal advice on what she needed to do to legally take this job. She got legal advice on the activities that she needed to not participate in for a year, like lobbying the city council. And she has been diligent in complying with that part of the ethics law. I think in the review of the totality of the circumstances that there was this oversight of the RTC role when analyzing whether she could take the position or not, and that extra, that service agreement for extra services. And so this was far from what I would think the intentional worst case nightmare scenario of the cooling off statute. We can't. It's difficult to land on what is the appropriate remedy when you can't say, we can't go work. We can't stop somebody from going to work there. The appropriate penalty then I think is financial, and in making that determination, you have to look at all of those mitigating factors. I think that to the extent there is this relationship between the Downtown Reno Partnership Board and the city and the RTC that is all kind of entangled together. I don't think that any of that, the entanglements were not created by Ms. Jordan. The entanglements were created by the way that the city set up this downtown improvement district and this nonprofit organization, the Downtown Reno Partnership, to provide those services, right? And so that is to me where, in looking at those previous entanglements, somebody from the city council was going to need to sit on the Downtown Reno Partnership Board, because that's the way they got it set up. They may reconsider that after this particular case, but Ms. Jordan, given her ward and her interest, was the subject matter expert on the city council to sit on that entity to help make sure that the city was getting, what it was paying for and helping shape the direction of downtown. So I think that is where I'll be honest, when I first saw in the news that Ms. Jordan had taken the job, I thought, well, this is going to be a cooling off case, and this is going to be a very serious cooling off case. And as the investigation went on, it is a violation. But given the mitigating factors we're required to consider in determining whether it is willful or non-willful, I think she made a commendable attempt to comply with the ethics law. We don't have, like technical and non-technical, but I think that the RTC contract was an oversight. There is a violation. They're finding the recommendation, the stipulation is to find a violation. And in determining that financial penalty, which is really the only action the commission can take at this point in the situation, so the totality of the circumstances warranted that level of financial penalty.
It's an interesting thing, and I'm trying to absorb it too, as commissioners have stated. I mean, it feels like it's better in this scenario to ask for forgiveness than to seek a permission. If the penalty is $3,000 and everything else is okay. And I'm not pointing any fingers, but we don't know what would have happened if she would have asked us for, approval, right? For an advisory. Time machine. But there's the potential we would have said no, because there is some issues here. There are some issues here. And in that case, if she would have taken the job, like you said, we couldn't tell her we can't tell this company not to hire her, would have been a willful violation, right? With a lot higher penalties and consequences. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it, to be perfectly honest, to do what's fair and to make sure we don't set a precedent where get a legal opinion that you're okay, and maybe they'll hit you with a couple $1,000 penalty fine later. That's a concern.
Can I make a couple comments?
please.
Thank you. I think it's important to think about the context of how not only Ms. Jordan, but many public officials serve on various bodies. Ms. Jordan was on the Reno City Council. By virtue of that, she was also on the RTC. By virtue of that, she was the appointee to the Downtown Reno Partnership. There's also a county appointee to the Downtown Reno Partnership. they're just, it's not really any different than like Tumwa or anything like that. You'll see a lot of elected officials serving on these various different bodies. And I think there's a long history of ethics opinions that encourage public service and try to be conscious that people should be able to go out and make a living after public service without too strict of an application of that. In this case, Ms. Jordan being on the city council and being on the DRP, that was part of her public service. She's dedicated to the city of Reno. She's dedicated to downtown Reno. She was doing that for those reasons. That RTC contribution, the Downtown Reno Partnership it's governed by a 17 member. One of those board members is a city council appointee, happened to be Ms. Jordan in this case. The other is there's a county position. The other positions are all private sector individuals, typically people who represent property owners who pay assessments in that district, which is the bulk of the budget. And that body, the Downtown Reno Partnership, is a private nonprofit entity. And they're designed to supplement services provided by the city. They provide, if you're familiar with Reno and you've seen the ambassadors who are down there, that's the program. Those are the kind of programs that they provide. In this case, the RTC, because as Mr. Armstrong said, the RTC has property downtown as well. So they participated, they entered into the contract to provide $100,000, which was a small part of the overall budget. Ms. Jordan did vote on that when and that's the issue that we have here. But that started in 2018. The 2021 vote was not a new contract. It was really just a continuation, a redo of that prior contract. So, and it was really, if you know, and we'd be happy to provide more facts, but it was not a consequential vote. It was not a big deliberation. It was a typical, it might have even been on the consent agenda for all I can recall. So it was a very simple, straightforward thing. It also occurred 10 months before the previous executive director of the DRP announced he was leaving, unbeknownst to anybody, which became out in the investigation. So I just would urge the commission to keep that in mind, because at the time she took that vote, even though that has created what you know, I know Mr. Armstrong said there's no technical or non-technical violations, but it created a violation that just simply could not have been foreseen. Because at that point, she was 10 months away from even knowing that she might be switching jobs. And then that job came up. It was a continuation of her commitment to public service and her commitment to downtown Reno. She applied for it. There was a search. There were allegations that there may have been something wrong there. Those were all dismissed. All the issues there, which as I said, Ms. Jordan sought out legal advice. I was assisted through that process. And there was really not much you could do about, I certainly understand that we don't want to have a situation like Mr. Armstrong said, where people are padding their nest for a job. This is not that case. She had no idea that 10 months before she took the job that there was ever going to be an opportunity there. She was going to finish out her last term as city council. She stepped down in the middle of her term to take this job and continue this public service. And I hope the commission would keep that in mind. We've done a lot of work with Mr. Armstrong to get to the stipulation. We agree that it's fair. And like I said, Ms. Jordan would just like to be able to continue on and keep dedicating herself to the betterment of the community.
I appreciate your comments. You know, I see, okay, it was awarded in November of 2021. I think the fact that when she sought legal advice, they didn't say, oh, yes, and you're on the RTC. They were just focusing on the city of Reno. That, you know, that could have been an oversight. I guess, you know, my thing here is we don't talk about the fact that, you know, she didn't abstain, okay, which is something that she should have done, should be included in here. I appreciate, you know, her cooperation. I appreciate the fact that she didn't ask to have a review panel, which would drag it out more and increase the cost. So I appreciate that. And, you know, I struggle with this case because it's not like they did the contract 3 months before and then she got the new job. That would look, the optics aren't good. And this one, it was 10 months away. Right. And I'm leaning more now that this was an oversight on her part. I don't think it was intentional. And so I would be comfortable to vote at this point. Based on that. Other comments? Mr. Oscarson?
Madam Chair, this is certainly one of the most complex things that I've listened to since I've been on the commission. I think that the public officials serve on various committees. They serve on in all kinds of different roles while they're elected officials, as we all, those of us who've done that know. It doesn't appear to me, after thinking about it and listening to the very thoughtful questions and comments from my fellow commissioners, it just doesn't appear to me that I don't think she did it in a manner that would be malicious. I don't think she did it in a manner that was anything other than her wanting. She knew her. She stepped down from her role in the city council, and then stepped into a different role where she could continue to be of service. I would concur with you that I could go ahead and vote on this right now. Mr. Hicks, it's good to see you. I appreciated your comments as well, and all the commissioners, and I appreciate you educating me to the process and the situation. Mr. Armstrong, you did an outstanding job, I think, presenting all the information and the detail to which you explained everything to me. So, Madam Chair, with I would be prepared to go ahead and vote on this.
Yes,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Grunwald,
Yes.
I would agree with Mr. Oscarson, and I would agree with your comments also, and I would be able to support this motion. A motion to approve.
All right, and I will entertain a motion then to approve I want to go and entertain a motion to accept the terms of the stipulated agreement as presented by the parties to resolve case number 22-098C. Jardine and direct Deputy Attorney General Lena St. Jules to finalize the legal form of the stipulation and other matters relating thereto. So I'll entertain a motion.
I so move, Commissioner Grunwald.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Was
Okay.
For the record,
Yes, for the
the
record.
reason I oppose, and it was close, but I oppose because I feel like I don't have all the facts in this case. I think there's some things that came out in our meeting today that may have influenced, or has influenced me. I'm not so sure about the amount of the fine. I'm uncomfortable still with that. Haven't had a chance to think about that. Although I appreciate the effort that was put in. Some positive things. I think Ms. Naomi's counsel did an excellent job in explaining to me about things that he said. But I still feel that this, even though it was non-willful, the violation still stands. But if I had more facts and more discussion about the fine, I probably might be more comfortable, but I have to vote no today.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's fine. Mr. Lowry, do you want to share any of your thoughts, or you already shared them?
I already shared them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate all your good work in this and the cooperation of your client with our commission staff. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you for your service to our state.
Thank you. I just want to say to the commissioners, that's why we have this commission, and that's why I have all of you. We might not always agree, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. I remember one case, you voted yes and I voted no.
Doesn't happen very often, but it happens.
Yeah. All right. Next item, good morning, how are you? Next item is discussion and approval of proposed stipulation ethics complaint cases number 22-126C, Cochran Fire Chief, Reno Fire Department. I want to say proper notice has been provided and waivers have been received for ethics case number 22-126C, Cochran. Further, the members of the review panel, Commissioner Lowry, Vice Chair Dufferin, and Commissioner Yin may not participate on the consideration of the proposed stipulation pursuant to NRS 281A.2204. All other commissioners may participate and vote on this matter. At this time, I would like to ask the counsel for the parties to identify themselves for the record and their clients.
City Council Elizabeth Bassett, for the Executive Director.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commission members, Jonathan Shipman for David Cochran.
Associate Counsel Bassett, will you please provide us with a presentation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. The complaint in case number 22-126C alleged that David Cochran, who's the chief of the Reno Fire Department, used the accoutrements of his office to benefit his significant personal interest in supporting Senator Catherine Cortez Masto's re-election campaign when he participated in the filming of a campaign commercial for Ms. Cortez Masto. The commission directed the executive director to investigate the claims that Cochran violated NRS 281A.400 subsection 7. Following that investigation and in lieu of an adjudicatory hearing, Chief Cochran and the executive director have entered into a stipulated agreement that's before you today. And the terms of that agreement are as follows. Chief Cochran agrees to stipulate to one willful violation of NRS 281A.400 subsection 7, which prohibits the use of government time, property, equipment, or other facility to benefit a significant personal or pecuniary interest of the public officer. No civil penalty will be imposed based on the following mitigating factors. Chief Cochran has not previously been the subject of any violation of the ethics law or previous ethics complaints. Chief Cochran was diligent to cooperate with and participate in the commission's investigation and resolution of this matter. Chief Cochran did attempt to comply with the requirements of the ethics law relating to the use of uniforms and other accoutrements of office when he appeared in the campaign video. Chief Cochran's conduct did not involve bad faith, was not done with malicious intent, and was not done with knowing or reckless disregard of the ethics law. Chief Cochran did not receive any financial gain, so no restitution would be appropriate. And other than his generic collar pins and badge, Chief Cochran did not use any City of Reno time, property, or equipment in the filming of the campaign video. And Chief Cochran did not receive any direct financial benefit as a result of his conduct. As part of the agreement, Chief Cochran will complete ethics training approved by the commission's executive director within 60 days of approval of this agreement. Given the information obtained in our investigation of the matter and the mitigating factors discussed, the executive director and I believe that the terms of the stipulated agreement are appropriate. We'd like to thank Chief Cochran, his counsel on this matter, Mr. Shipman, and the City of Reno for their cooperation in the investigation and resolution of this matter. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Shipman, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add?
Just real brief couple quick comments. Excuse me. First off, I mean, again, I'd just like to compliment staff on their professionalism and collegiality. We did appreciate that. And then I wanted to confirm that Mr. Cochran accepts the facts and the terms and conditions of the stipulated agreement. So, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Fellow commissioners, any questions, comments? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to accept the terms of the stipulated agreement as presented by the parties to resolve case number 22-126C. Cochran and Deputy Attorney General Lena St. Jules to finalize the legal form of the stipulation and other matters relating thereto.
I so move.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you so
Right,
much.
well, thank you very much. And again, we like to thank you and your client for your cooperation and helping to resolve this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right, next item. Item 6, Executive Director's Agency Status Report. Executive Director Armstrong, please give us your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet under agenda item 6, you'll see my written director's report. Occasionally I like to just show you where we are in terms of our social media followers. That continues to grow and expand, which is a great way for us to do education and outreach. In addition, on the education and outreach front, some numbers that fiscal year to date, we've trained about 1,100 public officers or employees. We hit 1,500 last fiscal year, so we're doing pretty good there. And calendar date is 82. We just got back from a Las Vegas Convention Visitors Authority, which was a great agency to go train. They have a unique. It's always unique when you have a government agency that has kind of more of a private motive. I did that in law school. I worked at the Oregon Lottery. It was weird to be in a government agency that said we should maximize profits, right? And so that was good, and I could tell that there was a good cultural change, perhaps from a couple of years ago when there was the big case involving them, and there's more. Nobody questioned whether they were a public officer or employee, right? They all understood that they had a duty as public officers or employees. So that was a most recent great opportunity to train. In addition, it's not in the written report, but I want to thank our executive assistant Carrie, up and running now our form. When you're on the main page and you click, ask for training. What we did is originally it would just send an email to our NCO email, and then there'd be like 5 emails back and forth trying to figure out who these people were and how many people. So now there's a form where they can put in at the first step, like, this is how many people we need trained. This is our target dates. This is what our agency does. These are particular topics. And so that should help us in a more organized fashion train and be prepared to do training. So that was a great change. It's been interesting working with State Web, because they were going to go to a whole new website system, and then they abandoned that. So there was a time when they said they wouldn't make any changes for us. So that's where we are in terms of that, the website. And then our contract with Tavuti, which is the private entity that has a system for training for online learning management system, has been approved. We are scheduled for our first coaching setup meeting next Wednesday to start the process of getting that set up. So we'll have an online training management system. I think that the next time consuming challenge will be in creating all the content to get on there before we launch it live. But I think one of the features I'm most excited about is that we can create a learning path that is specific to an individual. And so when we have cases that result in a requirement to do training, we can set up, they can log in and it tracks, they've actually, now we just say, hey, go watch our YouTube video and tell us you've completed it and you've complied. And so we can actually track which sessions they took and tailor those sessions to their violation. So that is pretty exciting into the future stuff. I've also included a legislative update. So the written one, the challenge with our NAC in terms of when we get you materials is essentially, especially in the legislative session, this is prepared about 2 weeks before this meeting, and so much changes in the legislative session during that time. So if you add on to the legislative report, the NCOE hearing dates, February 21st has been scheduled for our bill, our AB 66 bill at 4 p.m. in front of the Assembly Legislative Operations Committee. We presented on February 9th to the Joint Committee on Assembly and Senate Legislative Operations. And then our budget hearing will be next Friday, the 24th. The Assembly will be chairing that. It will be a joint meeting of the General Government Subcommittee. I think that I know the Secretary of State's budget is also on that day, and there's kind of sandwiched between the Secretary of State and someone else. You can see the bills that we're currently monitoring. There was one introduced yesterday, SB 156, that relates to the open meeting law that we will be tracking. It is from Senator Orenshaw, and essentially will put into law some of those emergency provisions that occurred during COVID that says if there's an emergency, you can meet remotely, and here's how you have to do it. So not like a wild bill that we're concerned about. It'll be a good one that will help us be flexible in times of emergencies. I know there is the bill everyone wants to know about, which is BDR 875, revising provisions relating to ethics. There's still no language yet on that bill.
Is that Senator Spearman's bill?
That is Senator Spearman bill. And then I'll be providing those weekly updates to Commissioner and team about any updates. As I indicated, our budget hearing, moving down on my my executive director's report. The budget hearing is scheduled for February 24th. Our PIO position was included in the governor's recommended budget, which is great. There are some differences between the governor's proposal for staff salaries and the competitive salary enhancement that we produced. So I think the chair will be prepared to speak to that a little bit at our hearing. And we'll go forward on that. And then we were hoping to have interviews today for commission council, but we had all but one applicant withdraw there from our offer to interview. I think Commissioner Tower said he's seen similar things happening in his efforts to hire folks. And so we'll be evaluating our next steps, probably take a good look at the job announcement, maybe a shorter time period that we keep the position open, but the state is definitely having a challenge in hiring attorneys. If you take a look at the unclassified job posting, the Attorney General's office has numerous lawyer positions open. And so that is where we are in the commission council hiring update. I'm sure we'll fly an announcement at some point here in the near future, maybe after some weeks and see what occurs, but we are not alone in our challenge of recruiting staff. So that concludes my executive director's report. I'm happy to take any questions about the status of the agency at this time.
Questions? Questions for the executive director? I know the hiring situation is pretty dire in the state. And, you know, even if we paid people at the state the same that their counterparts get paid in the cities and counties, we'd still be behind because of the PERS contribution. And that's a big chunk. And PERS is going up like another 4% this year for the employee share. So take that 8% raise, it's really only 4% that the governor's proposing. So I plan to speak on this at the budget hearing about, it's not just our office, it's everywhere. You know, we need to do something about it.
As the executive director was saying, I've experienced that too with the attorneys. I mean, there's so many jobs out there right now, both in public and private sector, that just talking with candidates, they're trying to pick which ones they want to go forward with, and if it's safe to move right now, because there's some uncertainty with the economy and the legislative session. And it's a tough time. I think it's going to be a challenge.
I think that we'll need to start looking at what we would have to pay a full-time attorney on contract. Because we'll have to, we can't continue to do this. I'd say, if we don't have somebody by June, we need to be prepared to go to IFC and do that.
I have a question. If you're allowed to say the one candidate that did not withdraw, they're still in the running then as a potential candidate for the future?
Yes, she has expressed continued interest in the position.
That's good. So we don't have to build a whole new group eventually, right?
Correct.
But we want to interview more than one person, We don't want to make mistakes again. So, all right,
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make a comment
yes,
on I did observe the February 9th presentation. I know that you were there personally at the legislature before the Assembly and Senate Ledge Ops Committee. I just wanted to note for the record that I was very impressed by the executive director's presentation about us as a commission, and I thought he did an excellent job answering the questions at the very end. Those are always tough because you never know what they're going to ask you. Some of the questions were a little bit, in my opinion, out there. Questions that, and what I mean by that is questions you can't really prepare for. So I thought he did an excellent job answering the questions, and they were all accurate answers. And there was not too much follow-up after that. As Commissioner Oscarson knows, sometimes you never know what you're going to ask until you get presented the information, but so it's not really something you can prepare for anyway. But I thought you did a really, really good job, and I wanted to thank you on the record, and I want to thank staff also. So I know that Carrie was there helping you run the slideshow, and she did a good job. I just thought it came off really professional, represented the commission very well. So thank you.
I thought it was good of the executive director to bring some of the staff there to see the process and stuff. I mean, I think it's important that, they get to be involved, and eventually meet some of the legislators and stuff as well. So that was good. And it was a very good presentation. And Executive Director Pedroza did a good job on the slides, so. well, thank you. All right, any other comments? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the Executive Director's Agency Status Report as presented.
So moved.
Right, is there a second?
I second.
Right, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner comments? Are there any comments that our fellow commissioners would like to make on future agenda items?
Madam Chair, probably get sick of hearing from me, but I want to have some comments. And they're just simply thank yous to staff once again. Mr. Terry's work, I really enjoy looking at his work when I read it and see his videos of his interviews when he does his investigations, and he does a very good job getting the information that we need to make decisions, and I wanted to thank him on the record. Darcy Hayden continually does a good job from my perception, as well as our executive assistant Carrie Pedroza, and I wanted to just thank those individuals, because sometimes their names aren't heard always, but we know they're there, and they're the backbone of the commission, so thank you, staff. And also I wanted to make sure that we pointed out that Liz Bassett is doing a lot of extra work, and she continues to do that, and I wanted to thank her for all the work that she does too, because it's not easy doing two jobs. And finally, Lena St. Jules, I appreciate the information that you provide to us for these meetings, and I want to thank you on the record. And hopefully you'll apply for the open position. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Oscarson.
Well, I appreciate all those comments by the vice chair. He's always very thoughtful in those comments, but I have a much more specific issue. I was having nothing but grief and consternation, if you want to call it that. I know that's a big word, Commissioner Dufford, so if you want to look it up a little later on, you can. I had nothing but problems with IT yesterday. I mean, I sent the thing to IT, I did all kinds of things, and late last night I was reviewing my documents and couldn't even get in my email to review anything. So I texted Ross about, I don't know, probably 8 o'clock, just telling him in the morning, I need you to send me all the information that I can get so I can, do what I need to do. I mean, I didn't expect it, but within about 5 minutes, he texted me back and said, I've done this, here's your stuff, here's things to this email. Carrie sent some things to a Dropbox, a confidential Dropbox that I could access. And this morning I had a number from IT to call. Carrie had already contacted them before they opened, and somehow got a hold of somebody and had my password changed, and I was able to access everything I needed. There's nothing worse than IT issues and problems. We've all experienced it, I think. And especially when your password says you're locked out for 12 hours because you're dumb. So I was able to access that information, and a true debt of gratitude to both of them for allowing me to for getting that issue taken care of. It was a big deal to me, and I get very frustrated when technology doesn't work the way it's supposed to, but they fixed that and streamlined that process. So thank you to both of them.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowry?
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
you're all awesome. I agree.
Okay. I just saw you unmuted, so I thought you had a comment. So no, I will say staff is always so responsive, and I really appreciate that. So, we're lucky to have them. All right. No other comments, then I will ask for public comment. Our Executive Director Armstrong, are there any members of the public that wish to comment? Have you received any additional emails?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no members of the public that have entered the meeting room here in Reno. I will defer to Executive Assistant Pedroza if we've received any written comment, or if there's anyone on the Zoom wishing to provide public comment.
We have not received any written public comment through our email. We do have one member of the public in attendance on Zoom. And I have asked them if they'd like to make public comment and did not hear back from them on that, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll s-
All right,
I'll
is there a
third.
second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned.
Vice Chair Dufferin and Commissioner Towler, are you good to jump right away into our review panel?
Yes.
Okay. See you in a bit.